Looking to improve your employee retention? Start by perfecting your onboarding and training experience for new hires. Check out Trainual to see how they can help you scale your growth and make onboarding easier and more efficient than ever. Check out the link in the show description or on the Manufacturing Culture Podcast partner page at manufacturingculturepodcast.com. Hello, and welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast, where we explore company culture and the fascinating world of manufacturing. I'm your host, Jim Mayer, and today we have Chris Flemming, Vice President of Operations at Maximum Industries, with over 30 years experience in the manufacturing industry. Chris started his career as a machine operator at Alexandria Industries in 1992 while attending Alexandria Technical College during the day for a machine tool degree. Since then, he has worked his way up the ranks, developing a passion for CNC machine parts and becoming a leader in the tooling department. In 2000, Chris decided to go on an adventure to the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. Here, he took a position as an applications engineer for Productivity Inc., a machine tool distributor supporting their sales from a technical perspective. Chris returned to Alexandria in 2003 and worked on many materials and machines throughout his career, including leading operations in Suzhou, China, and Carrollton, Texas. He has also been an active National Tooling and Machine Association member, serving as chapter vice president in 2019 and president from 2020 to the present. With his energy, drive, and multicultural background, Chris is always looking for ways to make an impact in an industry that has treated him so well. Join us as we dive into his experiences, insights, and perspective on the culture of manufacturing. So sit back, relax, and join us for this exciting episode of the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. Hey, Chris, welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. Thanks for being on
Jim,
today.
how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
I'm doing
well.
Doing fantastic.
Awesome. How's the weather in Texas? It's been a wild winter for a lot of us. So how's the weather down there right now?
You know, we're finally getting back to the normal springs where we're at right now. Now it's just rainy and about 80 degrees. So can't complain about that.
Raining and 80. So that just spells humidity for me. And as somebody in Phoenix, that's not something I enjoy too much. But I'll let you guys have it. So before we dive in with Chris and our conversation, I want to remind everybody listening to go check out the website at manufacturingculturepodcast.com, where we have the show's last few episodes and link to the Patreon and merch sites. Yes, we now have hats, mugs, bags, all sorts of things. And we even have a shirt inspired from the last episode that says, I have a no asshole policy. So thank you to our previous guest for the inspiration for that shirt. Chris, as our guest today, we're really going to talk about Maximum, your experience at Alexandria, the cultural journey that you've been on, and some things that you've done and implemented to change the culture at both organizations. So first off, let's talk a little bit about Maximum. What is Maximum making, and how big's the team? Tell us a little bit about the organization.
The Maximum Industries team is a pretty awesome group. It's we've got about 40,000 square foot building, and it's got just a huge amount of diversification in there as far as what they do, products they make, the industries they make it for. The people, we've got about 43 people that are working here at the time. And that includes everybody from our engineers to the quality to the marketing and all the production people on the floor.
Wow.
But yeah, it's just been the amount of diversification, everything from water jet cutting to laser cutting to some fabrication to CNC milling, CNC turning, robotics. It's just a real awesome, smaller environment.
That's awesome. And you're relatively new to the organization. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, right?
Yeah, I've been with Maximum Industries now about 6 months. And it was just kind of one of those things that I made the change from Alexandria, having about 27 years of experience with Alexandria. I got to a point where in my life where it was like, you know what, I got 15 years left of this. And if I don't try to do something different now, I'm probably never going to do something different. And, you know, with my passion in CNC machining and just general manufacturing, I just wanted to expand out a little bit beyond aluminum extrusions
Yeah,
and put my hands on multi-metals and multi types of processes again.
that makes total sense. That makes total sense. Uh, so tell us, let's give a quick rundown of the culture at Alexandria, just so people have an idea of something that you know, your cultural journey on a broader scope. Then we can talk a little bit about your, pardon me, about your time at uh, Maximum now, and where you want to take the culture at Maximum. So when you joined Alexandria Industries, what was the culture like there?
You know, when I joined Alexandria way back in high school, of course I was in high school, right? I came from the fast food industry and all kinds of other stuff, and just being a, you know, dumb kid coming out of school, you really don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
What you did expect is the way things were in the fast food industry, and you know, I wasn't saying I wasn't working for Chick-fil-A by any means, so you didn't have that type of a culture. And for me, moving into a manufacturing environment in the early '90s, it was kind of what it was. But Alexandria was it was more of a family type of a company even way back then. The culture was always it was just I mean, there was no yelling, there was no screaming. It was just that was what normal was for me walking into manufacturing.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I mean, they really set the bar pretty high right away in the beginning, which
Yeah.
is probably why I ended up staying there 27 years because of the way it was.
So tell us about some of as your career grew there, Chris. What were some of the things that became evident to you that this was really a cultural thing that kept you there and kept your counterparts there as you grew through your career? What were some of those things that became evident?
You know, in the very beginning, to me, everything was all about the skills and the opportunities that I was looking to try to achieve. Right,
Hmm.
I was so focused on wanting to become that CNC expert, and that's all I wanted. I was strictly focused at the opportunities I was given and what I was able to work on, what I was able to do, the freedom I was able to give to be creative with it, and just that continuous learning portion of it. And again, that culture with Alexandria, they really thrived on that. I mean, they really opened it up to allow us to do that kind of stuff, which again allowed, and I put the initiative into it, right? I was hungry for it. So being hungry for it, I would put 110% at everything that they would give me, and which in turn allowed me to accomplish a lot of things
Sure.
that gave me that next opportunity, that next advancement. So, you know, in the very beginning portion of it, that's what it was to me. And it
Hmm.
wasn't until I left Alexandria to go work for productivity. Again, very similar environment to Alexandria. I knew what I was walking into. I knew them from working with Alexandria,
Sure.
and it was that same type of a culture. But again, at a young age, more focused on the technical advancement and the skill advancement than I was anything else.
Right.
Um, as I was with productivity, that gave me a lot of opportunity to go into so many different shops because every time they would sell a machine tool, I'd be able to go in there and I would either be doing the training on the machines with their employees or talking to the owners as they're looking to buy the machines, trying to convince them. It was interesting at the time. I had hair that was probably down past the middle of my back, so I always wore it, and I was wearing it in a ponytail. When I started there, they said, you know, we'd really like it, you know, because you're now a little bit more of a professional figure if you cut your hair. And I kind of laughed at that because I said, okay, you know, I get it. I said, tell you what, the first time we have a problem with it, I'll cut my hair. And they agreed that that was okay. And it was actually, I think it was that kind of opened it up as I went and met with everybody because you get out on the shop and be like, oh, well, he's just not a clean cut guy that's walking in here and talking. He actually knows what he's talking about and he looks the part. So this is
Sure.
going to
Gave
work
you a
out.
little street cred walking
Yeah.
into those shops. I got it. I got
Yeah.
it.
And a bunch of those shops that I went into, again, we know company culture or positive culture is not necessarily all over, right?
Yeah.
You can go into some shops that are just dirty, nasty, and disgusting, and they're rude, they're mean, they're focused on anything else. It's just do this and don't ask questions and that type of stuff. I had the experience of being in some of those places. I
Yeah.
had the opportunity to go in some other places that were union shops, and that definitely made me understand that working at a union shop was not for me, because of the politics and stuff that went along with that.
Yeah. I always
So
say, Chris, you know, I can generally tell, and I think most people can, what a shop's culture is within 5 minutes of a shop tour, right?
yep, yep,
Because once you get behind the that set of double doors or that single door, whatever shop you're going into, if people are engaging with the guests as they are walking through the shop, that typically means that there's a positive culture, right? But if they're staring at their shoes or looking away, not engaging with the guests, typically is a sign that there's a break in the culture somewhere, right?
yep,
Whether that's a feeling that leadership is going to come down on them for talking to guests or something else. But generally, you can tell right when you walk into a shop what their culture is going to be like, and so that's really neat that you got to see that firsthand, because not too many people in your shoes go from industry to distribution and then back to industry, right?
right,
So
yep.
when you went back to Alexandria in '03, what was your title at that point? And then uh, and how did your career progress beyond that point?
So when I went back to Alexandria in 2003, I actually went back there as the applications engineer supervisor. Part of the reason that they had brought me back is not just because I'd gone out to productivity, but prior to that, I was the CNC programmer at Alexandria,
Mm-hmm.
and they realized after I had left that they'd really lost something in their development and their forward motion and such. So they opened this position up, and I just happened to hear about it and kind of went back and circled on back, and kind of made me a good candidate for it. So went back there and kind of picked up where I left off is what I did, with the exception of walking in as a leader at that point. And that was actually my first, other than some tooling leads and some general shop foreman type leadership opportunities. This was my very first leadership opportunity.
Okay. Okay. So where was the culture at that point? Was it still relatively positive? Was it still great? What was the culture like at Alexandria at that point?
Well, like I said, it was kind of like I never even left. I left for about 3 years. They moved into a new building and they did a bunch of renovating and stuff like that. But yeah, walking in, I mean, still most of the people that I'd worked with prior to being there before were there. Of course, there was a handful of new people that were in there. The culture very much the same. Again, a very kind of we're all one big happy family type of a deal. I mean, it was a little bit different because when I was originally started there, it was like 125 employees versus when I went back. And then at that time, we were probably around 300
Wow.
and some employees.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
walking back into that door and, a little bit different building, but most part, the faces are all the same. And it was kind of picking up where I left off, with like I said, the exception of now I have an experience underneath my belt, and thinking that I know a little bit more.
Well, and so Chris, how did starting off in a company that had a positive culture, one that you fit into, how did that shape your leadership journey, right? That journey, because so often in manufacturing, we see the individual contributors that are the best at their position get promoted into leadership roles. And a lot of times they don't have leadership experience or skill set. And so the company culture tends to uh, drop, right? It seems to decline a little bit as new leadership takes over. But it sounds like you had such a good cultural foundation there that you were able to go in and be a really effective leader. How did that take place?
I tell you honestly, it took place with a lot of coaching.
Okay.
One thing that Alexandria was very good at is personal development. And they had some leadership coaches that they were awesome with promoting from within, giving people the opportunities, and they realized that a long time ago that just because somebody has the ability and the mindset doesn't necessarily mean they have the tact or the the right approach to
Yeah.
handle that kind of stuff. So I was very fortunate right away in the beginning to be hooked up with a leadership coach, to kind of give you a little bit of a difference of where I'm at now versus when I first started. Like I said, that was my first leadership opportunity.
Mhm.
when it's funny because I laugh about it to this day. And actually, my coaches that I've worked with in the past have always laughed at it too. So when I first was offered the group of people who I was going to lead right out of the gate, so my opening statement to them was, I hope your soul belongs to Jesus because your ass belongs to me.
Jeez.
I mean, it was just that mentality, right? Coming from what you thought that a leader should be, and you had to be strong, you had to be tough, and you had to be the driver.
Yeah.
And I found through experience and coaching and stuff like that that's absolutely not what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I get that. And I think I mean, I tell this story in workshops that I do about the first time I became a leader, and something similar, right? I was in distribution, and the company that I was working for said, "Hey, we want you to be a leader. We want you to build a team of yous." And that cookie cutter approach didn't work, and so I tried almost to your point, to build a team of me's uh, with brute force and ignorance,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And I failed. I failed miserably, and ended up leaving the company, leaving leadership, going back to an individual contributor role because I didn't want to be a leader. If that's what leadership was, I didn't want any part of it. And quickly through some coaching and mentoring from other organizations, refined the craft of leadership. So it's a very similar story to what you experienced there.
Yeah, I told them a couple of times too. It's like, yeah, or they asked me a couple of times. So, what do you like being a leader? And I said, I love all the things I'm in control of. I love all the things I'm responsible for. And they said, well, what don't you like? I said, I don't like working with the people about it. And it kind of completely contradicted everything that was there. And they called me out on it. They're like, well, wait a minute here.
That's not right.
hey, 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 and you never realize that until they call you out on that right away. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, you know what? You're right.
Yeah. Well, and that's phenomenal for them to have leadership coaches then. I mean, at that part in their journey, what a forward looking organization. So uh, and this isn't really anything that I've asked any previous guests, but you spent time in China and Suzhou, China. Is
Yep.
that right?
Yep.
Uh,
That's correct.
hey, 15th time's a charm, man. So tell us about the cultural differences working in China versus the US, Carrollton, Texas, et cetera. I mean, that has to be, especially as a leader, that has to have some huge cultural differences.
Yeah, I mean, being a person coming from the upper Midwest, small town Alexandria, Minnesota, and then going from a town of 15,000 people to a city of 9 million,
Wow.
it was huge. I mean, I've traveled, I've been to big cities and stuff like that, through fun things, but not necessarily being there, living in there, any of that type of thing. But yeah, when I got there, it was the weirdest thing how that whole thing happened. Anyhow, honestly, I was supposed to go there for 2.5 weeks to be the technical setup as we were opening the facility,
Okay.
and train the people, get the equipment and stuff like that up and moving. And those 2.5 weeks turned into 7 weeks because of some equipment delays. I came back for about a month, and my boss was there and back in that time, and he started telling me about stuff that was happening over there, and I said, you got to put me on a plane, get me back over there, let me fix it. And so he did put it back on there, and it was at this point that I'd already had the opportunity to understand. People are people; they do what they do. Everybody has a seat or everybody should have a seat on the bus.
Yeah.
How do you put the right people in the right places? What approach do you take with them, and so on. So as I jumped back on that plane and came back over to China, got landed in Shanghai and ended up back at the facility. I ended up spending 22 weeks that year in China.
Wow.
Again, technically being there supporting everything. But it was weird, right? When I landed there the first time and it was one of those things for me that it was just so different. It was so awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know that it really was that often, but again, you drive around in the U.S. and most other places, and you see regular letters on the signs and road signs and stuff like that. And whether it's in Spanish or in French or in German or something like that, you can still kind of see that it's a word.
Right.
And in China, everything's Chinese characters. And, it's just crazy. It's just like, wow, it just almost blew my mind. I was just so excited about it.
Yeah.
And the people, probably one of the biggest things with the people was again, didn't matter if they were Chinese or who they were. They're people, and they're treated just like people.
Mm-hmm.
When
Absolutely.
I got into the facility, and the original hiring and stuff that was going on, the original general manager that we had there, he was originally from Spain, and he had a little bit different of a mentality as far as how to run people. He ran everybody more on the lines of your soul better belong to Jesus because your ass belongs to me.
Got it. So
And
the mistake that you had made earlier was his current reality.
yeah, and I see this wide open. I'm just like, oh my God, you can't do this. This is not the Alexandria way. And I'd been very passionate about being a member of the Alexandria team, and what we believe in, what we stood for. So, I took that with me everywhere I went, and that's the culture that I wanted to share, and that's the culture that I wanted to spread.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, and I had met other foreigners that were there from other countries, the United States, other companies and stuff like that, and they said that, yeah, but this is different. This is China. You can't do that here. And I said, I don't necessarily agree with that. So
Wow.
I continued on in my journey that I was at, and it was a great crew. I mean, I
Yeah.
took a crew that they were who they were. One of the big things in the beginning was nobody ever wanted to do anything more than what they were supposed to do, because that was the Chinese way.
Mm.
You hired me to put this piece here, and I'm going to put this piece here. That's all I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And what I was able to do is by working with them, showing them, teaching them, I just continued to build them and grow them. I had a 2-shift operation with about 25 people that, they did some rotations and stuff like that. And in the beginning, they were saying, we got to hire more people to do this. We got to hire more people to do that. And I convinced them that I said, you do realize that your incentives are based off of the number of people that we had. So if we want to add people, your incentive goes smaller because you're adding people. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, as soon as they got that realization, then that was kind of the icebreaker of the whole thing.
Yeah.
From that point on, they completely changed and they were focused. A couple of the other managers that I had, again, young guys, never had been managers before, they were a little bit more pushy and stuff like that, trying to drive them to do stuff. And I helped them understand. I said, you have to realize that happy people are productive people.
Yep. Absolutely.
And,
So you had an opportunity to mentor and manage managers at that point, right? So
yeah, because all the managers that I had there were all first time managers as well.
wow. Wow. And so that experience, how did that then affect your ability to lead back in the US when you were back and leading your regular team at Alexandria here in the US? How did that affect that?
Yeah, what I was able to do there, taking the pieces that I learned, how the incentives that I used, that the little tricks that I used, things that when I seen that Chinese culture change from a Chinese or a regular Chinese company to a Alexandria company in China, it was like I knew that I had some good things in my toolbox.
Yeah.
And looking at that, when I came to Carrollton and walked into the facility here, I kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
I got to know everybody. I made sure that I understand who they are. I checked out what their abilities were. I tried to identify what's the best fit for them. And honestly, sometimes not everybody is the right fit for it.
Sure. Sure.
And that takes a lot. That takes a lot of it too, right? It's going through, and you got to clean out some of the bad seed that's actually in the way.
Yeah. So let's now great segue. Let's transition over to Maximum Industries. And so when you walked in the door at Maximum, Chris, where was the culture? What was the culture like from the leader before you walked in the door?
You know what? The part of the reason why I came to Maxima was because of what the potential that I see.
Okay.
I'd been here. I've known the owner through the NTMA. He's also a member of the NTMA. I've worked with him on internships and stuff like that, and he's just he's a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
And with him being the way he was, you could see that trickled out into the production area.
Okay.
And even throughout the whole shop. And I just looked at it, and I mean, it's not where definitely where I want it to be. And there's a lot of things that we can do to take it to that world class level.
Mm-hmm.
But I also realize that I'm coming from a organization like Alexandria Industries that has all the support. You've got all your HR, you've got all your trainers, you've got all this other types of functions that a smaller company doesn't necessarily have.
Yeah.
And even things like safety understanding, safety guidelines, and stuff like that. It's there's just a ton of opportunity. But I would say that at least 90% of the people that are there or that are here are the right ones for the bus.
Okay. Okay. So how do you think that you're going to coach up or coach out the other 10%? How are you approaching that 10% that aren't the right people for this culture, for this company?
I look at it as being fairly fortunate, yes, and unfortunate at the same time. Being here in the last 6 months, I've actually done more technical things than I've actually done leadership type stuff.
Sure.
For the reason that the reasons.
Yeah.
But through that, what I really wanted to do, my original plan when I first came here is I said, for 3 months, I just wanted to do nothing but work out in the shop with the people, helping the people, because I want to make sure that, and again, through my experiences with China and Alexandria and stuff like that, I found that if I can show them, that I have the abilities and that I have things that I can offer to them, that I can help them move forward in their career, and I can help teach them things, but
Mm-hmm.
also let them get to know Chris, who Chris is, not Chris the leader, just Chris who Chris is.
Yeah.
That
A little vulnerability.
yeah, and I'm wide open about almost everything. What I've done good at, what I've done bad at, what I think I can do, and what I realize that I can't do.
Sure.
But just going through and just getting to know them on a more of a personal level to see, what are their intentions and what are their drives and incentives and such.
Yeah. So you said that you want it to be a world-class organization. What does that mean to you as far as the culture of Maximum? What does world-class culture mean to you?
World-class culture to me means creating that mentality to just do it better on your own. For example, cleaning. I mean, the shop is actually fairly clean.
Mm-hmm.
But to have to go out there and to look at somebody and say, hey, could you sweep up around your machine?
Yeah.
To not have to do that because you know what, they just do it
Because they take ownership. Yeah.
Yeah, simple things like safety glasses or earplugs or just general stuff like that. It's that they put them on because they want to have them on, not because they feel like they have to put them on. Because
Sure.
again, a world class situation is you don't want any safety injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. So Chris, the second part of every episode and the second question is what are 3 things that you've implemented? And I think that you can give us some tools, techniques, tips, things that you've implemented from Alexandria. But I'm more curious, and I assume the listeners here are as well. What do you plan on implementing at Maximum to get you to that world-class culture? Right? It's one thing to see what you've done and implemented at Alexandria, but where you recognize that it's not a world-class culture. It's a great culture, just not world-class. So what are you going to implement at Maximum to get you to that point? Attention manufacturers. Are you looking to take your company culture and employee engagement to the next level? Look no further than TCO Strategies. We offer comprehensive company culture assessments, employee engagement surveys, and leadership development programs designed specifically for manufacturers like you. With our expert team, you'll get the tools you need to understand your employees, improve communication, and drive success. Don't wait. Invest in the future of your business with TCO Strategies today.
The first thing that I believe that is the most important, again, people always think about who they are first, and they want to take care of themselves. So what I always like to do is, and so far I've put it together. I have not implemented it yet, but you have to put together a solid employee evaluation program.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been my theory that there's no employee that's working that should ever come into an interview and say, "How am I doing?" They should already know how they're doing, and if they don't know if they're doing a good job or a bad job, that means that the leaders have failed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So really, for me, it's really developing an evaluation program or a type of a review.
Yeah, performance management system. Yeah.
Yep. I'm a firm believer with what I implemented or what I attempted, and I would say it's 70% successful at Alexandria at the Carrollton location. We tried to meet with all of our employees on a quarterly basis.
Mm-hmm.
And by meeting with them doesn't mean that we're giving out raises, doesn't mean that we're handing out all kinds of stuff. It just means that how do you make sure that you take at least 5, 10, 20 minutes of personal time, sit in a room with them and just talk to them to make sure that they understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Also to make sure that they're clear on any expectations. Also to make sure that they have a measurement for success, because everybody wants that. Everyone wants to know, how am I doing and how do we measure that?
Yeah, absolutely. And through that process, are you redefining the mission, vision, values of the organization to help connect that performance management eval or metric or whatever you're using to the mission and vision of the organization?
Absolutely. One of the first things that I actually cover is at Maximum Industries, we have a quality policy. And
Okay.
that quality policy, it says it's a quality policy, but if you read through it, it is more of a mission, vision, and to value type. I mean, it
Yeah.
talks about, the one thing that we believe, the one thing that we strive for is doing whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And the meaning that, that's on time delivery, that's, quality of product. I mean, it's everything kind of entwined into that, but they called it their quality policy.
Okay.
And that's how I've been trying to sell it, sitting down with the employees. Let's make sure we really understand this. It's not just these words that are written out here. And as I read through that quality policy statement to each of them, I ask them the questions like this one right here: are we ever late on product? Well, yeah, but here it says that we're committed to on-time delivery, and here it says the best product possible. Are we committed to the best? Can you tell me by looking me in the eyes that you actually have put 110% into every part that you've ever delivered? Then it makes them just kind of sit back and think a little bit. So it's kind of helping to paint the picture of what we're trying to create, and hopefully giving them that vision of what it's going to take to fit into that.
Well, and Chris, that'll help you real quickly weed out that 10% that may not fit the culture, right? Because once you're able to connect each one of those jobs, each one of those roles to that quality statement or the mission, vision, and values of the organization, you can see which ones are rowing with you, which ones are rowing against you and which ones are jumping out the back of the canoe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's there's certain people. It doesn't mean the people that are on the bus are bad people. And
Mm-hmm.
that has nothing to do with it. I mean, it's you can always tell that there's some that are the high performer, right? And they're the ones that are the hardest to notice. You look at that who that high performer is, but you know what? They're only a high performer when they want to be a high performer.
Sure.
You know, maybe they don't show up to work on time. Maybe coming to work is more their choice than our choice, and
Yeah.
you know that puts me in that low value quadrant.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So that's a good first initiative. What's number two? What's after you implement this performance management or employee eval program? What's next?
It's developing the goals and setting the expectations. I mean, what are we trying to, even though we've gone through the quality policy and stuff like that, it's making sure that we've got some posted goals that they can actually see. You know, the goal is now to be, how do we make sure that the whole shop is 5S? How do
Yeah.
we make sure that we are, you know, zero incident on an annual basis? But I think it's laying out those goals and those expectations, making those very clear so that way everybody understands them, and repetitively talking about them to help, again, connect us to that final vision.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So what's
Because
a oh, go ahead. Sorry, I'll ask my question after your statement.
well, I was going to say because it's those are the stepping stones to get to that world class organization, and you can't expect that you're going to turn it overnight. I mean,
Right.
you have to have a roadmap that's going to tell you how you're going to get there, and you just got to prioritize what you're going to. You got. My mom always said, "Pick your battles," and this is one of the battles that you just have to determine how to pick.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you developing or identifying the KPIs and part two of that question, how are you going to necessarily connect each of those KPIs to every role in the facility, or are you?
Yeah, you do. You have to connect the whole facility together because if you don't, you get people from other areas moving into sections, and it just causes the chaos. The KPIs, honestly, I'm looking at them right now is the low hanging fruit.
Okay.
And by low hanging fruit, meaning how do you make an impact to something to create a positive? You find the simplest things that you can possibly do,
Yeah.
and it's because then they feel accomplished
Sure.
by helping the people feel accomplished that they did something, and it helps you build on that sustainability portion of it, because that's the one thing that frustrates most people, me for sure, is you spend all this time and effort creating something, and then if you turn your head the other way, it just deteriorates away within a short time.
Yeah.
You have to help create that sustainability of what you've done, because otherwise it doesn't pay to go forward.
Yep. Yep. I like it. I like it. So we've got developing goals, implement a employee eval program. What's your third initiative at Maximum there?
Third initiative,
Yeah.
improvement of quality.
Okay.
Our quality of the quality of our product is great. I mean, it's probably one of the best things or one of the greatest things I've seen out of a lot of shops because of the attention and stuff that's put on it. But there's still opportunity there. You know, it's simple things like workmanship standards. It's not necessarily product quality. Probably it's more appearance qualities. It's more how do you get, without having to direct it, you know, that everybody to do that one little extra thing
Yeah. I get it.
that says, I wanted somebody to be able to get a part in their hand, or one of our customers to open the box up as they receive our product, and just have them open the box and say, yes, that is Maximum Industries. I can tell by looking at it.
And that's always a great feeling when they don't even need to see the sticker who it was shipped from, but they know exactly who made that part, right?
Yeah.
But speaking of workmanship standards, I thought it was hilarious that you bring this up. I was on Reddit early this morning because I followed the machinist forum or subreddit on Reddit. I want to know what people are talking about in the industry, right? And somebody posted a photo of workmanship standards from a print, and they didn't know what it meant. So I hope their boss did not see that. I hope that anybody from their organization did not see that, because that kind of threw me for a loop. I'd never heard of somebody not understanding that. So maybe they were new. Maybe it was a coachable moment, but that was a little side story. Sorry about that. Chris, I like your 3 initiatives for Maximum. Are those things that you're drawing from your experience at Alexandria that you were able to implement there, or that you went through those processes there? How did you come up with those 3?
It was processes that I've always attempted to do. It's who I am. It's how I'm built. To me, those are the 3 things that make something or make a environment fantastic. Moving to Maximum Industries, again, I was looking at myself and I was saying that, hey, you know what, you got 15 years left of this. And I was building it off of the Alexandria way the whole way through.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of that stepping stone for me to say, was it Chris that had these abilities, or was it Alexandria that had these abilities, or was it both?
Sure, that's a good question.
So this was kind of I guess just a new challenge for me. It's I've learned a lot in the last 30 years. And how do I take all that stuff that I've learned and expand that on? With the NTMA, I mean, all that other stuff, everything that I've always done with like high schools and technical colleges and stuff like that, it's always been about developing others.
Yeah.
And this is that opportunity for me to expand it out beyond and say, how can I help develop others to promote manufacturing? I mean, honestly, if I've got 40 people here and I lose 25% of them, but those 25% expand that same culture somewhere else, that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it just makes the world a better place.
Absolutely, and the industry a better industry, right? That's how we're able to get those young people interested in careers in manufacturing, and not only get them interested, but then keep them interested. So, Chris, at the end of every episode, I give the guest an opportunity to share their parting thoughts. What nugget of information would you like to share with the listeners today, if anything?
You know what? The one thing that I guess I tell everybody, it's follow that passion that you have. I mean, we all have a dream in our head of what it is that we want to do. And if what you're doing today is not what you think you want to do, change. Because you being, like I said it before, a happy person is a productive person. But honestly, I can tell you that from in the last 30 years, that there's not a day that I have not woken up and been excited to go to work. Whether it's been the places that I've been to or not, but it's just a passion for what we're trying to do. And if you can find that true passion in yourself of what it is that you truly love to do, you don't always go home happy. But I can honestly say that I have always woken up the next day fired up and ready to give it a try again. And that's what tells me I'm doing the right thing.
I like it. I like the energy, Chris. That's a wrap, everybody, for today's episode of the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. Chris, a huge thank you to you for sharing your journey with us. You've been a lot of places. You've done a lot of things within the industry. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your journey. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode and learned something new. If you took away one thing that's huge about the importance of culture and values in manufacturing. If you have any questions for Chris or comments about the episode, please contact us at manufacturingculturepodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts, and leave us a review. Join us again next time for another exciting episode of the Manufacturing Culture Podcast, where we'll continue to explore the company cultures in the world of manufacturing. Until then, have a great day and keep making things.